This podcast is not advice. It's just two widows talking honestly about grief, life, and everything in between. We're not professionals. We don't have all the answers. And some days we don't even have matching socks. We're just sharing our own experiences and what we've been through. If you're looking for professional support, please reach out to somebody qualified. It's not us. This is simply a space to listen, relate, and maybe feel a little less alone.
Hi, my name is Maria.
Hi, my name is Zoe, and we met on S Express, Grief Unfiltered. Welcome to episode 1.
Episode 1. Woo, excited.
Me too. Your turn.
Well, we both lost our husbands, but in completely different ways. And somehow we ended up in the same place.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so today's episode
Is when everything stopped except me.
Yeah. Yep.
How did your journey start, Maria, on when everything stopped except me? What does this mean to you?
The day everything stopped except me. So, the title is The Day Everything Stopped Except Me. What does that mean to you, Zoe?
I don't know now. We're going to keep this bit in. Okay, we're keeping this bit in. Okay, no, on a serious note, sometimes you just can't take things seriously. Well, you can at the time. My journey is very different to yours. And I knew death was coming. Every time I say goodbye to him at the hospital, I said goodbye because I thought it was going to be the last time. I was very well prepared because Robert's best friend is a prescribing paramedic and he also works in palliative care. So I've got to say, thank you, Barry. Did an amazing job at preparing me for death. And this was very, very clear in making sure that every time I left, I say goodbye. Now, I'd spent the last couple of nights in the hospital with Robert, except he didn't want me to be there when he died, I think, because I left that night. And what happened? Yes, he went. But we'd had a lot of time and the joy that we'd had together was amazing. But I remember that feeling of, it was 3:00 in the morning. I got called in. I knew obviously he'd passed because they told me on the phone. And so I knew what was going into. I got the children. They all came as well. So we were all there. It was a little surreal because, to be honest, he'd been in that situation for some weeks, just lying there, no life, really. So no speaking, no eyes open. So we had prepared for this day, but just the peace. We did actually bring, so Jax is Robert's service dog. And Jax was with us throughout the whole journey. So he was able to come into the hospital with us. We're going to talk about pets at a later episode. But what I felt is it was really important for Jax, the service dog, to see him past.
Mm-hmm.
So we brought Jax into the hospital. And what was really surreal about that is that he literally went up to Robert, touched his hand. He sniffed his hand. He tried to move it. It didn't move. And then he immediately turned and just sat and became loyal to me. It was almost like he knew that was it. There was no fuss. There was no, I think probably because we were calm as well. But that journey was just, the world had stopped, but everything else really was going on around you. The nurses, the doctors, they were all still working. You looked out the window. It was the middle of the night, but by the time then it was the morning, everything was still going on as normal.
Yeah.
Still going on as normal.
Yeah.
Now, how did that sort of look? Obviously, yours is a very different situation. So, obviously, the day everything stopped.
So, when he was taken by ambulance, I called my sister-in-law, Sarah, and I called her to come to the hospital and to let her parents know, let his parents know. So I went with my friend Leah. She took me to the hospital, and they guided us into a separate little room, and then his parents and his sister came in, and we were waiting. In the meantime, I was wondering why I couldn't see my husband, because I thought everything was still okay at that point. But as we were sitting there, I started getting really unsettled. And then when the doctor came in, I knew it's a complete sinking feeling. So she explained everything. So he passed away from a mass heart attack. And it was shocking. At first, I was just, obviously, I was beside myself, but I was also thinking like this cannot be real because it's so unexpected. He did have heart problems before. He had stents put in during COVID, so it wasn't that he didn't have any heart problems, but this is still very, very unexpected. And then when I saw him, they finally got to see him. I was just so angry. I was very, very angry. I wanted him to come back, and I was just it was just a really, really hard situation for me. And then eventually they took me home. So, which I guess puts us into the next question: coming home without your partner, husband. What did that look like for you?
It was really weird. We only lived 10 minutes from the hospital, and that 10 minutes just felt so long, so long. It was a sunny morning. I had a very different experiences, but it was just, usually you would come home and you'd talk to them. They would be the person you would come home to and you'd tell them about your day.
Yep.
And you'd share that with them. And I'm lucky enough that I've got my son, Josh, with us, and he lives at home just because of the financial situation with the crazy markets. I remember crying a lot, but I didn't also want to put him through that because he's got his own grief to deal with, and it's his father. He just shouldn't have to step into that role. No, but I think the first point of it was going to bed for the first night. Now, we'd had to sleep in separate rooms and separate beds for a while because of his illness and all of the equipment we needed for him. So that wasn't new, sleeping on my own, but just that first night really hurt, knowing that they weren't there.
Yeah.
That didn't come easy, and it still isn't easy.
Yeah, that's definitely, I found that the hardest part too. When they took me home, I actually wanted to be alone. They offered. They said, you need to stay with us. Do you want me to stay with you? I was numb. I didn't want to be around anybody. And I didn't even cross my mind what it would feel like to be alone in the bed after 20 years. Grayson was there. He's my dog. He's my dog, and it was very strange. I was very, very exhausted, which actually worked in my favor. So I remember a lot of crying and being upset and thinking, you know what? If I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and none of this is just a dream. It's not real. That's what I was thinking. Like I woke up the next day and it was still real, very, very real, right? And that feeling it was unbelievable. And then you start your journey, really. What happened next for yourself?
Okay, so Robert, being able to voice before he was non-speaking, he was able to voice what he wanted. He's always been a teacher. He'd always liked to tell people what to do. There was a couple of options for him, and he wanted to donate himself to science.
Yep.
He said he wanted to continue to teach. He said, well, basically, he was 400 pounds. He had bariatric surgery, and it was one of the really first bariatric surgeries, and this was the good 20 years ago. So he wanted people to continue to learn because basically this all stemmed from malnutrition because of whatever. So, and he'd lost so much weight, and he was not happy. He should have been, anyway, it was a different ballgame. But he just wanted people to learn from this so they didn't go down the same path. And so he wanted to be donated to science, which we'd already prearranged. So I'll go into detail at that in another one because I think that's really important for people to understand. Because sometimes people joke about, oh yeah, let's donate to science. Yeah, but how many people go through with it?
Yep.
He really wanted to go through with it. So, but it's not as easy as going, here we go. Everything, there's certain processes that have to take place.
Yep.
So we knew. So the good thing about it is my son is actually very organized in some sense. We'd already planned a checklist because we knew if I fell apart, then he could follow this checklist. And on this list had a sequence, it had phone numbers, it had who we have to call because we had to call the university. Actually, we had 3 universities lined up who said they could possibly take him, but they still have to come on the day. So they have to come within a certain period time, like 6 hours. They have to come and evaluate the body to see if it was viable for them to take it, because under certain circumstances, they can't take the body. And we were blessed in the sense they came, they let me know that, yes, Robert can go with them. So he's actually at Humber. He's still there. So my journey is not finished. Some people can't, I wouldn't think that some people could cope with what we're going through. And because he is there, we don't know when he's coming back. He will be cremated. They do a lovely service. We don't get to attend. It's actually very respectful. I've heard lots of lovely things. But then we will get him back cremated. But then our journey starts again. So it's deciding what to do next. He has got certain wishes that he wants to do, which we will follow through. And as a family, we will spread his ashes together. But we don't know when that's going to be. That could be anywhere between 6 months and 5 years. So it's a long time to hold. And I think as we do one of these podcasts later on, just about, the different options that you have, I think if you're even thinking about this option, you have to be prepared for that wait. Yeah, you have to be prepared for that open wound a little bit later on. Some people need that closure now, and we just don't have it right now. But we're okay with that. We're okay with that. We discussed it as a family as well, because it impacts the children. They're only 22 and 28, so I know they're children, but they'll always be the children. And what about you? What did you do for Jean?
Well, we did a cremation. We just had a celebration of life. My Jean's family was amazing. Sarah and Reese, Jean's dad and sister, they were just amazing. Absolutely a rock. She definitely did most of the work. Without her, I probably would have been just lost, to be honest, because you're not prepared for that.
No.
If it's unexpected, when this happened, I was 48 and he's 50. You don't think about that at all. You don't talk about it. You don't make any wills most of the time. You don't. Yeah, it just doesn't cross your mind. So absolutely phenomenal. And so we had a very beautiful celebration of life, but it was really hard. It was really hard for me. My journey until the celebration of life was my two brothers came from the Netherlands, originally from the Netherlands. They came and they came and supported me, Bart and Boom, and that was wonderful. Yeah, I think it's a very hard journey to go through.
How long did they stay with you, your brothers?
They stayed with me until they came few days before, and then they stayed until a few days after the celebration of life. So I don't really remember how many days it was, because things are, to be honest, things are a little blurry.
You don't remember it?
You're like, really, that happened? Wow. And that's kind of the same way, right?
Yeah.
You're just in a daze. You're literally in a daze. You're barely there, really.
You just go through the motions.
You do go through the motions. I did manage to do a eulogy. Yes, and that contained, Jean wrote me a beautiful poem, and I read that one for him, for me, for everybody to hear. So after everything was done, you come home again.
Yeah.
Of course. All the friends and families, everything's done.
Yeah.
So what was your coping mechanism, so to say? What's your plan? What was your plan afterwards?
Because I'd had that journey of all that hospital time, I had started to write poetry, and I've never been a journaler, never been a writer, art is my medium, and I didn't want to do art, which I knew something as soon as I knew that, but I just knew. So I went with the writing. So I literally sat down and started to write more poetry. So it was only a few days. And then Daisy, my daughter, who travels around the world, actually, for work, she had to, previously, just before he passed, she'd gone to New Zealand. Every time she went on a trip, she'd come and say goodbye to her dad, because she didn't know if she was going to have him when she came back. Luckily, she was at home when he passed. But her boss said, look, you've got to go back to New Zealand. I'm going to suggest you take your mum. So I actually, a week later, because we didn't have a body, we didn't have any service or anything else, I actually ended up going to New Zealand with my daughter. We booked a farmhouse, where when we arrived, we had animals and things. And my intention was to finish the book. That was my closure. So I'd written the journey all the way through, and now it was the time to do the final chapters, and poems, which were just closure. We stayed in New Zealand for, I don't remember if it was 1 week or 2 weeks. Could have been 2. I think it was 2. And during that time, all I did was live on the farm and write poetry. Now, we were surrounded by animals. I got to feed the sheep. I got to feed the chickens. There was butterflies. It was springtime. Or it was actually autumn. It was the end of the season. And I cried. It's a good job Daisy went to work, because all day I wrote this poetry and relived everything. It was joy. It was sadness. It was everything. And I think that really shows in the book. I did all the editing. I did everything. And it was that closure.
Yeah.
It was just dumping everything that had been built up over the last sort of 6-7 years into one capsule, which I could complete. Now, we did do a couple of activities, and we'll talk about guilt later on another one. There was some smiley moments, but was there a smile? We did some dangerous stuff. We did some stupid stuff. We laid out on the grass and looked at the stars, and that made me cry again. But yeah. So it was the really weird ending, and situationally, most people wouldn't go on a vacation a week after, but it wasn't a vacation. It was a journey. It was a closure, and it's still not closed. But it was definitely a really strong healing point. And that time alone, even though Daisy was with me, you're in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the most beautiful New Zealand farms. It's beautiful. And I could walk, and I could just be alone. And I talked to him, and hopefully he came with me, and I enjoyed it as well. So, yeah, that was really weird and not normal procedure, I think.
Yeah.
So how long did you get time off work, and what does that sort of look like for you?
Well, first, tell us what the name of the title of the book.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Actually,
Can we find it?
Yeah, so it is on Amazon. It's called Caregivers Confessions. Now, it's sad and hilarious, because it had the most wicked sense of humour. Absolute wicked, naughty, wicked, mischievous sense of humour. And the reason why I did the poetry is, I needed that creative outlook. But there was some things when he was dreaming, when he was having sepsis, when he was having all of these moments, he didn't recall. He talked to angels. We're spiritual, but he had whole conversations and things that he didn't remember. So by writing the poetry, I was able to, when he was awake, relive that with him. So I could share that with him. I could share his journey through the poetry, which was a really good feedback for him as well.
Yeah.
And it gave us that bond, and I retell stories, and there was bathroom incidences which most people would not laugh about. But you had to, because you're living in this misery and this pain that if you didn't laugh occasionally, some people probably thought it was really sick humour, but we had to, and that was just who we are. That's how we dealt with death. The dead centre of town, and all of the jokes. We should never go in a funeral car with anybody. But that's the way we relived it. So anyway, Caregivers Confessions by Zoe Clements on Amazon. We'll put a link in. And I'm actually now writing 3 other books. One's about pets. One's about menopause. So it's all the way from puberty to menopause. And again, poetry of all the things that people should really tell you. But it's like, oh, don't talk about this. Yeah, and a general one. Just humorous life stuff, really. And that's just a nice way to spend a morning just writing poetry and reliving some of those journeys and things we've done in life. So thank you. And I'll be closing with one of the poems, which actually is relative to this one today. So,
well, comparing to you, I didn't go to New Zealand. Oh, how I'm going to top that one. But so I have to be very honest. I didn't have a lot of time after the celebration of life, because unfortunately here in Ontario, you only get 3 grief days.
I know.
Paid grief days, and then it's just, I can have some sort of words for that one, but we're
yes.
mention that.
Yes, we're not going to
politics. No. But So yeah, I had to go back to work, even though my work is quite fantastic. I have to say, I'm very lucky, very supportive, and but I was too angry at first, and I had a lot of grief. I didn't want to do anything. I just went to work. I barely wanted to do that, even though I love my job, and it was very, very hard to pick up for me, for myself. And usually art is my outlet as well, my painting. And it was really hard for me to get motivated. And it still is. Even 2 years later, it's still sometimes really hard to motivate myself doing things. But eventually I did pick up art again after I had to move, which is another thing that I did. When two income in the household to become one, and I couldn't afford the place where we were staying at, so I had to move. Only a few months after I lost Jean, so that was really hard. And I also needed to make a decision because we already set everything up to go back to Europe. I mentioned that, I think, in the introduction, that we were just coming from Europe and he did his knees, and the plan was that we were going to go back, not from the start, but somewhere after a few months, we decided to go. So we organized everything. We had a place to stay there. We had a house there. Both of us had a job in the Netherlands that we could go back to. I had my plane tickets. So I kind of had to make a decision also to let go of the place that I was supposed to go back to, and let go of the job that I was supposed to go back to. Because at the time, I really, like I said, I didn't want to do anything. I didn't know where I wanted to be. And that was a tough decision because I came back for Jean, and Jean's gone. So really, I can go back, but it's not as easy as it sounds to make that decision. So I decided to let everything go and to find something here. My wonderful friends, which to me are like my second family away from my family, have graciously offered their basement apartment to me, and that helped me enormously. I think when I started living here, where we're actually recording, it made a big difference to be close to them, to have people that care about you that close. I live in the middle of the forest, so it's very peaceful, not far from work, which is great, and I didn't have to commute so much. And then eventually I actually brought Grayson to work, and my boss, they decided that they were okay with me bringing Grayson, and that made a big difference too, especially in my healing journey. Yeah. So that's really my story, what I did afterwards, which is,
traumatic in itself with the whole, I mean, we're both immigrants, but we're both Canadian citizens.
Yeah.
But that being torn between two countries is really hard.
It is very hard. It's
long.
Yeah. Like, it's really hard when you're not going through something like this, but it's even harder when you lose your partner. I do know that you know who you can rely on after you have a major loss. I don't know about you, but yeah, it's, the friends and family, it is very important going through this journey.
What I found as well, I mean, I don't know whether you found, sometimes it's not the people that you think are going to be there for you. I mean, obviously, you've got friends and family around you, but, or, even if they're not blood-related family, to me, family is family.
Yeah.
But yeah, the people that you don't expect really to be there for you are the ones that come out the woodwork and are there for you. I mean, it's amazing.
It is amazing.
And the ones that run, some, even when Robert got sick, some people just couldn't cope with it. They just went, never,
Yeah.
And that's really hard. That's when you know who friends are. And
it's very unfortunate. I discovered that as well. But I have to say, the people that were there for me through these hard times, they're just invaluable. They are absolutely amazing. I am extremely lucky to have such wonderful people. And then I joined the group and I gained even more. So, which is even better.
Yeah.
Because it is hard, even with your friends around and your family. It is hard for them to put themselves into your shoes, what you're going through, unless you've lost somebody that is very dear to you. In this case, a husband. Yeah, it is very hard to relate, and I think that's what we're talking about next week.
Yes, it is. It's basically teaching us the things that nobody warned you about.
Yeah,
really.
yeah,
That's really a whole new episode and a whole new discussion to come next week.
very much so. There's a lot to unpack there. Anyways, I hope that you've enjoyed this episode.
Yeah.
If you like, leave a comment. We're always
I think
happy.
we're meant to say something like and subscribe, but we're not sure yet. We'll figure
You
it
know,
out.
buy us a coffee. It's what I heard.
We definitely need lots of coffee.
Yes, we would love some support. Please share with people at least. We would be forever grateful. And
Okay, until next week.
Till next week, and you're gonna hear a beautiful poem.
Yes,
by Zoe Clements.
Please don't cry. Okay, actually, you might not have heard this one.
Okay.
It's actually, it sort of ties in really well with, that ending, and it's called Through the Window. Through the window, the world unfolds, a tapestry of stories, quiet and bold. People bustling, lives on display, time marches on its own endless ballet. A man washes windows, his rag in hand, wiping away the city's grime and sand. Leaves are raked, a golden tide, whispering secrets of their swept aside. A plane soars high in the cobalt sky, to exotic places where dreams can fly. But here I sit, bound to this bed, longing for home and for warmth it has bred. Below a dog trots, tail held high, its owner's breath a mighty sigh. Workers mend roads, the seasons race, before winter's chill takes its place. A bus hums by, a passenger's grey, heading to work for another long day. Each life a thread, each step a tune, dancing beneath a pale afternoon. From the topmost floor, a miniature view, the city hums alive and renewed. Yet here in this room, time stands still, marking moments with patience and will. The sun sets slowly, the city aglow, lights begin their twinkling show. A gentle reminder of life's endless flow, the rhythm above and a world below. But through the window the world spins on, while here I wait the hours long. But the loyal companion at my side reminds me of the love that abides. For though time moves fast, for those who roam, I'll find my peace in this moment alone. Through the window life carries on, a quiet symphony until the dawn. And that's the end for today. All right. Cheers. See you next week.
See you next week.